Good habits are foundational to achieving your goals. However, what they aren't is easy to build, and getting them to stick around is even harder, which is why so many people eagerly start trying to read more books, eat better, go to the gym, only to inevitably find themselves going back to the warm familiarity of Netflix, Cheetos, and the 68 calories per hour they burn while sitting just days later. Of course, most of these people make things even harder on themselves because they don't go about building their habits in a smart way. So what we're gonna do today is go over 4 common habit building mistakes that people often make and what you can do to avoid them. And we're gonna start with what is possibly the most common habit building mistake, which is jumping into the deep end right away. This could involve taking on too many habits at once or attempting to build a really difficult habit instead of starting small. A lot of people think that to be successful, they have to jump immediately into a very difficult habit. If they want to read more books, they have to start reading 50 pages a day. Or if they want to get good at piano, they have to start practicing for 2 hours every single day. But all progress is made in small steps. Even Neil Armstrong's first step onto the moon was a small one. The giant step for mankind that he referenced was a nod to the years of incremental progress and small refinements made not only by the astronauts themselves, but by the thousands of engineers, scientists, and technicians that supported them as well. They knew that to do something great, it would take years of incremental progress, and that progress is only possible if the objective at each stage is something that is slightly out of reach, but that's still doable. Another group of people who know this very well are game designers. They can throw all sorts of interesting elements into their games, but most people will get overwhelmed and stop playing if everything is thrown at them all at once, and that's why smart designers build in steady progressions. Take a game like Hollow Knight, for example. Eventually, hours into the campaign, you'll be dashing and double jumping and using all sorts of powers to take on multiple enemies at once, but in the beginning, all you can really do is jump and swing your sword at a beetle. So take a cue from the astronauts and game designers. Start small and then build what the author Nick Winter would call a success spiral. Make your initial habits easy. Practice piano for just 15 minutes, read 10 pages of a book, get up a half an hour earlier than you normally do. And as you prove to yourself over time that you can handle your habits, then slowly spiral up. Move that 15-minute practice goal to 30 minutes, or start getting up a little bit earlier than you were before, or maybe even add new habits to your plate. But in the beginning, start small. Don't jump into the deep end right away. That brings us to mistake number 2, which is assuming that there is no chimp. A few years ago, I ran across this really cool band called Chimp, and if you're into really technical instrumental metal, I would definitely recommend checking them out because I really like their music. Their name, though, always confused me. I had absolutely no idea what Chimp meant. That is, until a couple of years ago when my friend Simon, who is from the UK, used the word spanner to refer to a wrench. And that's when it hit me. Chimp spanner equals monkey wrench. And that also helped me to understand the old saying, throw a spanner in the works. Now, this is just an interesting tidbit about the differences between UK and US slang and phrases, but here's the point. There is always a proverbial chimp waiting to throw a spanner into your habit building work. And the big mistake that people make when building new habits is assuming the chimp doesn't exist. They assume that everything will go well all the time and that nothing unexpected will pop up to derail them, which of course means that they're not ready when something inevitably does. So realize that the chimp is always there, ready to throw a spanner into the works. Or to put it the way Charles Duhigg would in his book The Power of Habit, anticipate inflection points, points at which you're likely to run into pain or discomfort or some inconvenience that's likely to derail you, and then plan for those points in advance. Now, for some of these points, the only real plan you can make is to simply be ready for the discomfort before it comes. For example, in the book, Duhigg reports on a study that focused on people who had gotten knee and hip replacement surgeries. Now, to fully recover from a surgery like this, patients have to start exercising and moving almost immediately afterwards. And a lot of people never do fully recover because they can't bring themselves to accept the pain involved. So what the researchers in the study had people do was very simple. They gave them a piece of paper and they had them write down goals and action steps for what they were going to do to get that exercise in. These were often very simple, like one man's plan to simply walk to the bus and meet his wife after work. But in writing them down, these people were anticipating moments of pain and planning on how to deal with them. And the results of the study speak for themselves. The people who did this started walking twice as fast as the average patient. Now, it is worth noting that not all inflection points have to be faced head on like this, because many of them can be avoided through good planning. And I'll give you one simple example. Every single morning when I wake up, I make myself a smoothie. And I could easily be derailed from this habit if I ran out of crucial ingredients like the milk that I use. So I make sure that that never happens by following the rule that I learned from CGP Gray's podcast, Cortex. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. I always have a backup. That way, running out of the first one will not derail me. Mistake number 3 is choosing not to sit beneath the sword. In ancient Greek history, there is the story of the Sword of Damocles, in which a courtier, Damocles, is given all the power and luxury of a king for one day. But in addition to all of this, there was also a giant sword placed above his throne, hanging from a single horse's hair. And for Damocles, the threat of this sword dropping was enough for him to give up all those luxuries, all the riches, all the power back to the real king. In the story, the sword is a metaphor for the precariousness of having power. One false move could set tragic events into action. And because of this, I always think of the sword when I'm building new habits, because I like to set up my own sword when doing so. In other words, I set up consequences for failure. And most people choose not to do this. They choose not to sit beneath that metaphorical sword. And with no consequences looming above them, they often lack the self-discipline required to stick with their chosen habits for the long term. So how do you sit under the sword? Well, for me, the best way of doing this is to use what are called commitment devices, external systems that are set up to track my progress, but also to ensure that there will be some kind of consequences if I fail to stick to my habits. The simplest example of this, which doesn't require any kind of app or special tool, is to make a bet with a friend who cares about you. For example, a few years ago, I made a bet with my friend Martin that I would read 25 pages of nonfiction every single day for 3 months. If I skipped even one day, I would pay him $100. And to keep myself accountable, I gave him a link to a spreadsheet where I tracked my progress, which showed that I indeed never skipped a day. If you do want to use a special tool for this though, there are sites like Beeminder and Stick, both of which essentially act like that friend and will charge you money if you fail to stick to your goals. And there are also habit trackers like Strides, Habit Hub, and Habitica. All of these let you track your habit building progress and build streaks over time, and the main consequence that they bring to the table is the threat that those streaks will be broken, though Habitica in particular uses game design elements as well, so you've got experience and health and multiplayer quests, and your character can lose health or even die if you slack off. Whatever you choose to use, I highly recommend that you find at least some way to hang that metaphorical sword of Damocles over your head, at least until you know the habit you're trying to build is fully ingrained. That brings us to mistake number 4, which is trying to build a habit without a strong, personally meaningful reason for doing so. As the author Simon Sinek would put it, you need to start with why. Don't try to adopt a habit just because someone you follow does it, or because you saw it on your favorite YouTuber's morning routine video. Now, that doesn't mean the smoothie from that video isn't something you should put into your own morning routine, but before doing so, you should ask yourself if it's actually going to move you towards things that matter to you. As the author James Clear rightly points out in his excellent book Atomic Habits, good habits can make rational sense, but if they conflict with your identity, you'll fail to put them into action. And you have to keep this in mind because it can be so easy to get caught up in emulation for the wrong reasons. Take reading, for example. You see all these successful people on the internet reading tons of books every single week, so you think that you have to as well. But what if the thing that you want to learn right now would be better learned in another way? Reading a book isn't the only way to learn something. Sometimes you learn better by just messing around and tinkering, or by going to a class or taking a course, or by going down a long, messy Google rabbit hole. Now, you can't really track your messy Google rabbit holes on Goodreads. You can't really put them up on your shelf in your garage next to your Lamborghini.
You know what I like more than Lamborghinis? Anime.
It's hard to brag about them, but that doesn't make them useless. And depending on what you're trying to do, that method of learning might be more useful than reading a book. And if that's the case, you should probably dial back your reading goal to make room for it. For example, one of my biggest interests right now is learning to produce music. Now, there are a ton of music production books out there, but right now I'm just trying to figure out how to use Logic on my computer. And I've found that the most effective way to do that is to simply try to do things in Logic and then to go find a tutorial or a video or a forum post when I get stuck. At the moment, doing that is far more useful than simply going through a book. So to briefly summarize, first, start small and build success spirals. Don't try to take on too much at once. 2, acknowledge the existence of the chimp and anticipate those inflection points. Figure out if you can avoid them if possible, and if not, mentally prepare for the discomfort that they will bring. 3, sit beneath the sword. Integrate accountability and consequences into your habit building efforts. And finally, number 4, start with why. Make sure that you have a strong, personally meaningful reason for each habit that you choose to build. One thing that is incredibly meaningful to me is music, which is why earlier in the video I talked about how I'm learning music production. And in fact, the background music you're hearing right now is actually something that I produced and played myself. And to touch on that playing aspect for a second, one thing that has become abundantly clear to me in the past couple of years is that your ability to play an instrument is determined less by how many years you've been playing than on how consistent you are with putting in hours of deliberate practice. I mean, I got my first guitar at 13 years old, but it's only in the last couple of years that I've gotten really serious about practicing it on a regular basis. So if you want to learn how to play an instrument as well, then use the habit building techniques from this video to make practicing into a strong habit. And while you're at it, you should also seek out the best learning resources that you can find, one of which is Fender Play. If you want to learn how to play the guitar, Fender Play is a great place to start. Not only can you use it to learn tons of songs for guitar, bass, and even ukulele, but the app also includes thousands of video lessons, tabs, and something that I really appreciate myself, a comprehensive chord database complete with videos on how to play them properly. Additionally, there's a section called My Path that you can use to go through a logical progression of skills and songs, which means that you'll never sit down and not know what to play. And that playing can happen anywhere, as you'll find Fender Play in your browser, as well as on the iPhone, iPad, and Android devices. So if you want to start learning and playing, then head to the link in the description down below to get started with a 14-day free trial. And if you decide to go with their annual plan, you're also going to get 10% off of Fender guitars, amps, and gear. I want to give a huge thanks to Fender for sponsoring this video and working with me. Seriously, I have been playing Fender guitars since my dad let me borrow his 40-year-old acoustic back when I was a teenager, so to say I'm excited about this sponsorship is a bit of an understatement, so seriously, thanks to Fender for that. And as always, thank you guys for watching as well. If you got something useful out of this video, definitely consider hitting that like button, and you can also subscribe right there to get new videos when they come out, and also click right there to get a free copy of my book on how to earn better grades. Lastly, you can check out one more video on this channel right around here, or you can click right over here to hear some of my other guitar work. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys, as always, in the next video.